Today we're talking about the difference between athletic training and strength or muscle building. Well, what's the difference between the two? Now, today we conflate the two and we think that we can do both at the same time. But what I'm going to show you is that they are the exact opposite. You want to do the opposite if you want to build strength and build muscle than you do if you want to build athleticism or sport-specific skills. So just think for 2 seconds logically about why they would be opposites. Number one, if I want to get better at a skill, I want to be more efficient at the skill, meaning I can put less effort into it and get more performance out of it. I want the movement, the flow. If I'm going to shoot a basketball, if I'm going to swing a bat, if I'm going to throw a ball, I want that to be a flowing, effortless movement that I can repeat time and time and time again. What is form and technique? Form and technique is efficiency. That's all it is. When you're strength training, you want to do the opposite. You want to be as inefficient as possible because it's not about moving the weight. Now, if your skill is doing bench press because you're a power lifter, or you're squatting or you're deadlifting because you're a power lifter, that's different. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these athletic endeavors that have nothing to do with weightlifting, not Olympic lifting, not powerlifting, not CrossFit. I'm talking about athletic endeavors, running, biking, swimming, sports, all right? Gymnastics. Those things are skills. And if you don't practice those skills and get more efficient at them, you will not get better at your skill. Well, if we're in the weight room, what's our point of being in the weight room? We want to build strength. They call it GPP, general prepared fitness, or general preparedness for physical activity. So what does that mean? You want to strengthen your muscles, strengthen your bones. You want to have the body prepared to take on the athletic endeavor. But if I just lift weights, or if I do functional training where it looks similar to the skill that I'm performing, because I'm doing a lunge and that looks like running, which doesn't, but anyways, go ahead, yeah. That is going to not translate over into that skill. As a matter of fact, you might get worse. I'll give you an example. I used to play basketball, and I used to play and practice and play and practice, and I would go after school and I would dribble for hours, I would shoot, I would pass the ball against the wall, I would work on my skills, and I was always very, very skilled. Then I stopped playing basketball after my junior year. I had terrible coaches. I shouldn't have played at all in high school. I should have went on and done other things. I should have been playing soccer maybe, but that's beside the point. I stopped, and then I went to the weight room, and I didn't touch a basketball for a long time, all right? All I did was lift weights, and I got bigger. I got more muscle mass, and then I went and played basketball, and I was worse. Why? Because I didn't practice my skill. You've seen this with other people. They've grown, and their skill doesn't go. Their muscles and their body changes, and their skill doesn't develop along with it. So you have to practice your skill, practice it. If you want to have your strength be married with that skill, you have to do things together so that you don't build strength and then get your skill. You want to do them concurrently at the same time. So the strength side of things might help you perform better, but if you just get stronger and you don't improve your skill, or at least you don't keep your same level of skill, that strength is useless. Again, think about that difference. It's about efficiency. I want to become as efficient as possible if I'm in my sport. If I'm swimming, I don't want to be using a bunch of energy flopping around. I want to be smooth because every 10th of a second matters in a race. If I'm, again, shooting, I want it to be fluid. I want it to be effortless so I can get the shot up quicker, all right? I can do it in many different situations. I have that repetition after repetition after repetition. With strength training, I could do an isometric where I'm not even moving. I mean, talk about the complete opposite of what your sport is. You're moving, you're dynamic, you're competing against other people, right? There's all these different variables. There's zero variables. I'm pushing up against a wall and I'm building strength. I want to be as inefficient with my movement patterns as possible so that I stress the muscles. If I'm really efficient, like I think about kettlebell swings, and I used to do kettlebell swings, I used to do kettlebell snatch, I used to do all the different exercises, and I thought I was building athleticism by doing that. What was I doing? I was building athleticism in kettlebell training. That's it. I'm not building athleticism because it's sport specific. A perfect example, Jay Vincent uses this as an example all the time, and it shows you how idiotic a lot of the things that we think of as translating from sport, from the weight room into sport is think about typing on a keyboard. You have your computer that you use at home and you type on that keyboard. Now, go to a copy machine place, all right? Go use a friend's computer. Go use a Mac instead of a PC. What's gonna happen? You're gonna be slower at typing from just going, it's the same exact type of keyboard. It's a QWERTY keyboard, the letters are in the same place. It just might feel a little bit, you might have to push a little bit harder, or it's more sensitive. You don't push as hard. You're gonna make more errors. On a thing that is exact same size, it's just the dexterity of the keys will change your level, your output, how efficient you are at that skill of typing. Now, you're gonna tell me that a lunge is gonna translate into better running. It will if my weakness was my legs weren't strong at all. I didn't have any musculature whatsoever. But if I just went and ran, all right, I would build that musculature. So we're not talking about someone who's at 0 and then is going to improve to a skill at any level of skill, go from a 0 to a 1 to a 5 to a 10. What I'm talking about is when you're already at a decent enough level and you think that what you're doing in the weight room is going to help you get here. If you're deficient, yes. But if you're not deficient, if it's a skill that is lacking, then doing more strength training is never, it's actually it might make things worse for you in the gym. But again, with your training, it should be the opposite. You should be practicing. You shouldn't be going to failure. Whereas in the gym, you should be going to failure and exhausting all those muscle fibers so that you can, again, get the maximum response of building the strength and building the muscle. Now, if you keep that, and then you go to your skill and you practice your skill. When you start getting sloppy with your skill, you take a break, you take a rest, you take a couple days off, right? You have training sessions designed around making sure that you're efficient as possible so that your form and your technique on whatever it is that you're doing is perfect. You want to practice perfectly so that it gets ingrained in you. If it starts to waver, right? If you're shooting and you want elbow in, elbow in, elbow in, and then all of a sudden it starts to flare out. You don't want to then continue to practice with that. You have to catch it. That's what a good coach does. Hey, you're fatigued, you're tired, we're going to stop practicing today, or we're going to take a break, we're going to take a rest. With training, yes, you want to have good form, but that's a given. You should never do exercises like a bench press or a press or a row or anything with bad form, because you have all this excess load that you're putting on through a machine or through a barbell or through a dumbbell. That's dangerous. You need to make sure that you're in proper positions, but also so that you can work the proper muscles. I tell my clients this all the time. If you're pressing and your shoulders are down, your chest is up, and you have good form, and then all of a sudden you start rolling forward and you start throwing the weight up by flaring your elbows and shrugging your shoulders, you just changed the exercise, number one. Yeah, it looks very similar, but you've changed it now to, instead of using your chest, your arms, and your shoulders, you're now using your traps. Maybe you're using your abs because you're using momentum. You're using your neck. You're changing the muscle group that you're using so that you can just do this movement. What we want to do is, even like I said, in an isometric, I'm stressing certain muscle groups, certain muscles, and I want to take them to fatigue, to failure, so that I can exhaust all those muscle fibers. I want to be inefficient with the movement. I don't want to be nice and smooth with my strength training. I want to go slow so that my muscles have to do all of the work. When I'm training athletically, I want it to be as effortless as possible, use as minimal of those muscles so that, number one, I don't get fatigued, but number two, so that force equals mass times acceleration, that fluidity is allowing me to get more force. It's just like you see people like throwing a baseball, okay? If I have terrible technique, there's no way I can get as much speed and as much power out of that throw. But if I have really good technique, boom, it's gonna laser out. Just like hitting a bat, just like shooting a basketball. A lot of it's technique. One of the things that you can do just quickly, right, is get low and then come up and go slow when you lift and you shoot. You're not gonna have as much power as if you dip and shoot and go quickly. So when I was a kid, I used to think I could never shoot from far away because I wasn't strong enough. It wasn't strength, it was technique. Once someone taught me how to dip and pop, all right, and get it up there with speed, boom, my force went up. Force equals mass times acceleration. I was able to shoot. So it was a technique thing. Now, if I got to a point where my strength wasn't allowing me to get it as high, then I can work on my strength. Like I said, if it's a weak link in the chain and we need to, but that's not most people, because most sports aren't lifting 50-pound weights over your head. They're, the basketball is what, 10 pounds maybe? A baseball is super light. Tennis ball, you can smack it with that racket, it goes forever. But the better technique you have, the more you can play it, the less fatigued you get, and the more efficient. Oh, I can hit that line, boom, boom, it goes in. Because I'm smooth, I'm fluid. I can get back to center, I can retrieve. So again, the skill, you want to work on efficiency. Being as skilled and practicing the skill as best as you can. When you're in the weight room, you want to be as inefficient as possible. Just even an isometric, that's the most inefficient thing ever, right? You're not even moving. That's going to exhaust muscle fibers if you do it correctly. Then you want to think, I want to go slow. If I am doing repetitions, I want to go slow. I see people doing, like I said, these kettlebell snatches and bouncing things off their chest. That's not going to translate into strength for you. It's going to translate into more injury. It's going to translate more risk. But again, you're missing the point of why you're there. You want to get into the muscles. You don't want to just do the movements. The movement is just accessing certain muscle groups, and you should train your whole body. If you want to be an athlete, you have to train your whole body so that the whole body gets stronger. And then you need to marry that strength with your skill. So as you improve with your strength, you better be doing your skill. If you don't, and you have a disconnect there, you're going to lose skill. You will lose skill. I'm going to repeat that. If you get stronger and don't marry your skill with it, you will lose your skill. It will get worse. And I was an example of that when I said I stopped playing basketball. I got stronger. Okay, I could, bench press 250 pounds, but I got worse at basketball. My shot was off because I didn't know how to maneuver that because I wasn't practicing as well. So the skill of your sport needs to be paramount, and the strength training is there to make up weaknesses. The strength training there is to, again, GPP, to make the whole body more prepared, more resilient, especially if you play a contact sport like football or basketball where you're bumping into people. You need to make sure that that body is resilient, but you still need to practice the skills. As a matter of fact, that's what you have to be focusing on the most. The most of your time should be focused on the skill. And again, it should be perfection, making it perfect so that you're so efficient with the movements. When you're in the weight room, get more inefficient. Do isometrics, see how your strength goes up. Go slower with your exercises, see how your strength goes up. And if you marry that with your skill, if you keep practicing, you will see an improvement. Because if my body gets stronger and my skill stays the same, then the force equals mass times acceleration. So if my mass goes up, or if I'm able to put more acceleration because I am faster, because I have more of that strength to move that body, because the bones are lighter, the muscles move everything faster, then I'm going to be more efficient. But if I don't have the skill, then I'm not going to be efficient, and I'm not going to be able to do the same things that I did. So they're the opposites. Athletic training and skill training, and then strength training and muscle building, they're the exact opposite. Don't try to marry them two together while you're in the weight room. Don't try to cheat the system. What you do is you work out very inefficiently, super slowly, exhaust the muscle fiber, go after the burn, go to failure. Then when you're doing your skill, do the opposite. Work on taking your time, perfecting the movement. When you get sloppy, that's when you stop. It's the exact opposite. Fatigue and not fatigue. Complete efficiency, inefficiency. If you put those principles in and you continue to do them, and you continue to see improvements in the weight room, and you continue to see improvements in your skill, and just keep that happy relationship between the two, but instead of trying to marry them two together and do the same thing, think about that keyboard example. It's such a beautiful example. If I think that I'm going to do something that looks similar to what my skill is, even if it's almost identical, your brain categorizes it as a different skill. Typing on a Mac computer versus typing on a PC computer are two separate skills. You're thinking there's no way that those can be two different things, but you just told me by your answer, you just kind of nodded your head when you said, oh yeah, all right, I remember typing on one computer and then going to another and making more errors and being slower. I do the same thing. So you have to get used to, you have to practice the specific skill, and you got to get efficient at that specific skill, whether it's tennis, baseball, basketball, doesn't matter. Same thing with your weight room, or not the same thing with the weight room. The weight room, again, is building the strength, exhausting all the muscle fibers, training from head to toe. And you can do that inefficiently with even isometrics without even moving. Just make sure that you're exhausting those muscle fibers and then get back to working on your skill. That's all we got today. They're the opposites: athletic, efficiency, strength training, not efficient. You want to be, again, making sure that you're doing the opposite when you're doing those two things.